Welcome to Week 5 of the Major League Gaming Starcraft 2 King of the Beta Hill Showmatch Series. I'm JP McDaniel, and co-hosting with me tonight will, of course, be the one and only Sean Day9 Plot. Now, today we've got a great ZVT matchup between two great players. Our first player is going to be Greg IdrA Fields, a CG Intis player coming all the way from Seoul, South Korea. Greg is known for his Terran play in StarCraft Brood War, but tonight he's actually going to be playing Zerg. Even though he switched from Terran to Protoss and now Zerg, he currently holds first place in his division with a 43-7 win-loss record, which is really, really impressive. His Terran opponent tonight is none other than Rory Bryant Rival, aka Cauthon Luck, a Seattle-based player and also a new face to the StarCraft scene. He played Warcraft 3 for a short period and started out as a random player in the StarCraft 2 beta, but ultimately chose Terran. Now, hopefully this newest patch of StarCraft 2 doesn't affect Cauthon Luck too much, because there were a lot of Terran changes, and hopefully we see some amazing TVZ games between these two players who actually have played against each other a lot in the beta. As right before the latest ladder reset, Cauthon did take first place from IdrA in their division. Now, in case you forgot, this is a best-of-5 series with the map rotation starting out on Lost Temple into Steppes of War, followed by Desert Oasis, and then Kulas Ravine, and to wrap things up, we have Scrap Station. So, enough talk about the players in the match. Let's go ahead and get these matches started. Alright, Sean, we're here on Map 1, Lost Temple of IdrA versus Cauthon Luck, ZVT, and this matchup has changed quite a lot in the past 2 days with those new patch coming through. Now, the Terran obviously is going to have a little bit different of a play than prior because of some of those changes to the race. What do you think is going to happen in this first match?
I think the biggest change that you need to note is the reactor time has been doubled now. There's a lot of early Terran tactics that involve getting that reactor out immediately, building a reactor at the barracks and having the factory steal it for double Hellion pushes, doing early expands and getting out big Marine Marauder combinations very quickly. All that gets hindered by the fact that the reactor has that little extra boost in time, but the tech lab has also been dropped to 25 gas instead of 50 gas. So we also see a lot of faster, cute tech stuff. Like Reapers suddenly have had a big resurgence in the last few days because players can just get them so easily.
Actually, in watching Cauthon, I was observing a couple of his practice matches, and he was doing a lot of stuff with Reapers, and hopefully we see some of those strategies that he was using the other day in this game. But of course, we do have Cauthon Luck, the red Protoss spawning at the 1 o'clock position, and IdrA, the blue Zerg, at the 2 o'clock position. Now, obviously the players are doing their pretty much standard openers, just getting their supplies down so they continue to build those peons. You talked about Reapers. Now, on the Zerg side of things, everyone's been talking about Banelings. Banelings are kind of the hot topic right now for Zerg. So what do you possibly see Banelings being used for the best in this matchup?
That is definitely one of the biggest. It's actually really funny. I mean, people always knew Banelings were awesome, because they could just take down huge marine lines so early on. But in particular, the series between Jinro and Diamaga from the Zotac Cup semifinals, Diamaga literally one hatch in base, Baneling rushed, and got about 20 Zerglings and 6 Banelings, and walked right up the ramp and demolished all the supply depots in the wall-in and won immediately, putting his opponent into the red supply and knocking down the wall-in. So, in addition to just being an awesome mid-game unit, Banelings suddenly are this huge early-game concern. So I'm already surprised to see that Cauthon Luck is not walling in with a barracks and a factory, and instead is walling in with those supply depots, because he's making himself very vulnerable to some early Banelings. But if we look over at IdrA's base, we see that, in fact, he's going for, it looks like around a 14-15 pool, and throwing down a 16 hatch as expansion.
Right, so actually looking at the build order of IdrA prior to this game, I was looking at a couple of his earlier games with that view profile, and he was actually getting the Baneling nest really, really early on. I don't think it's going to be that early on because he still doesn't have any gas yet. He might just be going for maybe a Speedling build, now we see gas going down in his base, so possibly a little late gas, but pretty standard openers. We do see a factory now going down at the front of Cauthon Luck's base, so he might be moving that into position to help protect from those Baneling attacks, like you were just saying.
And look at this. This is really unusual, moving forward with these first two Marines this aggressively. And if we go into IdrA's main, he really did not want to make those Zerglings. He was trying to get away with as many drones as possible. And Cauthon, look, moving up here, the SCV takes a little bit of damage, but those Marines should definitely be backing up. And if we go into IdrA's main, we have that Roach Warren coming out very early now. That's another change that we've seen a lot of Zerg players make. Oh, and look, the Zerglings are easily going to be able to overrun these Marines without any problem at all.
We do see him pull that queen down just in case. Now, one of the things that actually saw Cauthon Luck do was make a bunker and bunker rush that fast expand from the Zergs. However, he was using the Reapers in it instead of the Marines, so this might be a little bit of a change in strategy that he's kind of developed in the past couple of days. But it looks like those Marines didn't really do much. They're probably a little bit pissed off right now as they didn't even really shoot anything. They just kind of walked around. I think that SCV gave him a little bit of sight, though. He did see that Roach Warren go down in IdrA's base, so he kind of has an idea of what's going on as he sends now an Hellion towards IdrA's base, possibly to harass some of those drones.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, this is one of the biggest all-in type styles that we've seen happen in recent times. Look at this. We have the factory that's stolen the reactor to get those Hellions out very early on, and the Roach Warren that IdrA built early on is really the big reason is because it holds off these Hellions so easily. Notice that these Roaches got just out in time to be able to block this ramp, but Cauthon Luck is not actually trying to win with the Hellions. He's instead trying to skew IdrA's style to have too many Roaches in it. So that way, he can get a whole bunch of Marauders and bust in the front very early on. But IdrA is a really smart player and has already sent that Overlord into Cauthon Luck's base. Very unorthodox to do that because, again, Marines kill it immediately. But, you know, he was pretty well aware of what was going on. So now he has complete knowledge, so it's going to be tough.
Now, one of the things we saw last week from IdrA was this 2-queen strategy that he's using, and right now he's only using a 1-queen strategy. So, after you finish coughing there, do you think that's at all going to hurt his macro game?
Yeah, I just had to make sure I'm not terminally ill before I answer that question. I'm just allergic to too many Marauders early, I suppose. But, you know, I think a lot of the reason that we don't see a second queen right now is because the pressure is on really high right now for IdrA. I mean, first he had to deal with that Hellion harass right out the front door, and all of a sudden he knows that there's a bunch of Marauders coming in. And if we go to Cauthon Luck's base, he's not making that many units. He halted the Hellion production completely and is now adding on a command center. So trying to get a good transition set up there. And we see actually a bunch of Zerglings go down as well. And if we go into IdrA's main, look at that spawning pool, we see Zergling speed is almost finished.
Yeah, and that's actually really great timing because we see Cauthon now actually about to enter IdrA's base with that creep tumor down. It's going to allow his units to move a lot faster. We're probably going to see a surround there from those Lings. They're trying to get behind him. It looks like they are going to surround those Marauders, and those Roaches are just going to do work while the Lings just keep them trapped in. Now we just see Cauthon Luck trying to kite back, using that slowing ability from the Marauders with their weapons, but it looks like they're just going to keep going back as fast as possible, trying to get away. And now it looks like we see a couple Reapers actually joining in, but they're going to get surrounded as well from some Lings. We might actually see a kind of a push here from IdrA as he knows that Cauthon Luck doesn't really have that much. He needs to get that supply depot up at the front of his base, though, and there he goes, getting that up. That was a great timing there. Got that Marauder behind it, but now we see some Roaches coming up. They're going to be able to get those supply depots down rather quickly as there's only a couple Hellions, some SCVs, and 2 Marauders right now defending. He's going to try to repair that supply depot, but of course the Roaches are going to take it down. Now there's just a huge mass of Zerglings and Roaches right outside of Cauthon Luck's base, and I think you're just going to see Cauthon Luck slowly fall to the Zerg player here.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually so important to note that those SCVs... Oh, good game. It was really important to note that those SCVs had to go a slightly longer route to repair that supply depot. I really thought he was going to be able to get there in time and defend it without that, you know, big of an issue. But those Hellions that just popped out of the factory got in the way, and the SCV, with their supposedly good pathfinding, took the longest way possible to get to that burning supply depot. So kind of unfortunate that his Wallen fell that quickly.
Now, one of the things there that we actually didn't really get to see was those use of the Reapers. What do you think Cauthon was trying to plan, and do you think we're going to see a strategy with Reapers in Game 2?
I mean, I would love to see Reapers. They're, you know, one of my favorite units in Starcraft 2. I think those were a little bit more of crisis management, where he said, oh my god, there are a lot more Zerglings than I had expected, and then just said, well, what's good against those? Reapers, go! And just sort of spam the button. I think what would have been a little bit more effective was to be I suppose I'd say bit more consistent with the logic of the build. I mean, he opened up so aggressively, getting the factory with the reactor, getting 2 barracks with the tech lab, so he could really barrel down the front of IdrA, but he suddenly stopped that Hellion production and then expanded and tried to rush. I mean, it would have been a lot more effective if he had just added on up to 5, 6, 7 Hellions and then pushed with those Marauders, because it's that composition that Zerg has so much trouble dealing with early.
All right, guys. Well, there you have it. IdrA taking the first map, Lost Temple, over Cauthon Luck, 1-0, and we'll be right back with our second map, Steps of War.